Okay, so here's a list of the tools we used. 6-foot level, 4-foot level, cordless drill, 1.25" drywall screws, safety glasses, chalk line, our 2 scrap blocks that we made, top track, bottom track with a piece of fabric, double-sided fabric tape, plastic putty knife, Wallmate hook, Wallmate pick, second Wallmate hook, the Wallmate tool for tucking the fabric, tape measure, scissors, wood block, hammer, and just an electric miter box and a ladder. Okay, so what we've got here is about a foot-long piece of track, both top track and bottom track. Just a piece of scrap fabric on there. We put the tape on the back side of the Wallmate. We're going to clip the fabric together, and we just put a piece of scrap tape on the back so that the fabric stays tight around the track. Okay, what we're doing here is taking that piece of scrap block that we made with the fabric on it and just putting it up against the floor and our wall perimeters to determine where we want the inside of our track to line up. We'll just make a few marks with the track, and then we'll snap a line so that we know where the inside of our bottom track is going to go around the perimeter of our wall panels. Okay, we're running a screw in on our mark from our block off the side of the wall just to hook the chalk line on. Okay, so you hook the chalk line on the screw, extend the chalk line to the mark we made on the top of the wall, pull the string line tight and snap the line. That will give us the mark for the inside of the bottom track. We'll do that around the entire perimeter of the wall for our perimeter tracks. Alright, so we've got our line marked on our perimeter where the inside of our track will go. In this case, we're going to do 3 vertical panels. So we'll measure the width of our wall. Which is 121 inches. We're going to do 3 vertical panels, so we'll divide that by 3. We end up with roughly 40 1/4. So we'll come over and make a mark at 40 1/4 from each wall. And we'll come back to that mark and we'll take the level and draw a line plumb on that mark at 40 1/4. And we'll do that again on the other mark at 40 1/4 off the other wall. Now this line will be the center line of the joint between each one of our panels. Okay, so we've got our vertical mark. We're taking 2 of the blocks we made earlier, and we're going to hold the blocks up back to back on our center line that we just made. Exactly. Mike's just going to mark the inside edge of each of our blocks, and that will mark the inside of our bottom track. So we'll go to our other center line. We're going to do the same thing. Line up the center of the 2 blocks on our center line and mark the inside of our block. So there's our center line and there's our 2 marks on our block. Now we'll take the level again. We're going back to the mark we just made with our block, and we're going to plumb a line down for the inside of our track. We'll do that on each of the marks that we just made. Okay, so here's our center mark. Mike's got the level on each of the marks we just made with our block, and we're just plumbing the line again. We'll do the same thing on our other line. Okay, so we're working on the bottom track right now. We've got just the piece of bottom track. Mike's measuring out to match up with the measurement we've got from the wall upstairs. I'm gonna make a mark, and we've just got a standard 10-inch miter box, and fine tooth blade on the saw. Got a 60 tooth per inch blade on the saw, just a carbide tip blade, and just make sure you pull out the saw nice and few so you don't chip out the track. We'll cut all of our pieces of length and then bring them back upstairs and start installing. Okay, we've taken our measurements for our panel distances for our bottom track. I'll go over that with you in just a minute here. Okay, in this case we've got a plywood. We skinned this wall in plywood just to make our attachment easier. And Mike is installing the bottom track with a standard 1.25" drywall screw. He's putting a screw in every 8 to 10 inches because we're going to have quite a bit of tension on this track system here. He's holding the inside of the track on our line that we chalked earlier. Okay. He's got a standard drywall screw about every 10 inches on the track. It's okay to seam the back track if you get in lengths over 8 feet. Okay, now to get our length for our back track, we're going to go down to the bottom here, and we've got our marks. We're going to leave our back track about 1/4 inch short of the line for our track coming in from the other side. This allows us to tuck the fabric in the back when we apply our top track. So we'll go ahead and mount this bottom track in the same fashion on our line that we've got about 1/4 inch short of our vertical track. And we'll go ahead and install the rest of the track all the way around. So we've got a side track in, the top track is in. Mike's got the inside track is on our mark that we made with our scrap blocks before. Here's our center line mark right here. Okay, this track is on our inside mark. He's got this track just tacked, and he's got the 2 scrap blocks both snapped into the line. He's just going to slide them down, hold the block tight, and install the screw on the track for the second panel. Slide the block down about 10 inches. Hold the track tight, install the second screw. Repeat that process so that we get a nice tight seam when we go to snap the top track in. Okay, so we've got all of our perimeter tracks up, and we are installing the acoustical backer. In this case we're using a product called PEP, which is a tackable surface. It gives us an acoustical backer, and it's also tackable once we stretch the fabric over it for thumbtacks. So Mike's just installing that with standard drywall screws. It's just cut tight to fit in between our bottom tracks. One other thing I forgot to mention earlier when we were putting the track up, in this case we've got a sprinkler pipe, that round pipe that comes through the wall, and what we did is just made a black wood block around that pipe, and our fabric panel is going to just have that block cut out of our panel. Now on the inside corners we left our track 1/4 inch short of where the 2 tracks meet for the bottom track on all of our outside corners. When we have an inside corner, we have to miter the 2 bottom tracks so that our top tracks can have support all the way out to the outside corner. So Mike's just going to finish up installing the last of the PEP panels, and then we will be ready to cut the interior or the top track. So we're working on cutting the top track, and what we need to do is install a scrap of the bottom track when cutting your mitered angles. That allows the top track to be held square. And you just adjust the saw to the angle you want and cut the top track. Okay, so we've got our bottom track in. What we're doing on these corners is installing about a foot long piece of top track with a mitered angle. Now you've noticed we back cut that miter a little bit just because we want the tip of the miter to be the part that's tight. And the reason we are cutting these short pieces into the corners with the miter on them is to ensure that we get a tight fit on the corner. So in between these two corners, we'll just go ahead and install a straight piece to fill that gap between the two mitered pieces. So that's what we're working on right now. Okay, so here we are. We've got our corners that we had mitered that are only about a foot long piece, and we have added in a square piece to fill in that remaining track. So it's just a square piece that butts up from about a foot to the end. We're clipping that into the track, and that runs tight between our corners that we had mitered to make all of our corners. So we've got all the straight pieces filled in. So we've got top track completing 100% of the bottom track with our mitered corners. Okay, so now that we've got the top track all dry fitted, we're going to pop the top track back off of the bottom track. And to do that, Mike's going to use that hook and it just pops the track off the back, and we will unclip the back side, and he's adding the double-sided adhesive tape to all three pieces down the side that will essentially make them one solid piece again. So he's applying the sticky side of the tape, which still got the paper backing on the back side, until we get ready to put the fabric on it. Alright, so we've got all of our tape on our top track. We're going to measure our panels here. For a width, we've got 40 inches on this panel. And in this case, we've got an angle to the top, but if it was so we're going to measure to the longest point. If it was a square panel, you'd measure the height. And in this case, we're at 109 inches. So for the fabric, we want to add 4 inches to both of those measurements. So we want to cut our piece of fabric at 113 inches by 44 inches. We're going to add 4 inches to both measurements. Next, we'll go in and cut the fabric.